Hello and welcome to another episode of the Spartan Scoop. I'm your host, Chris DeCoke, and today we're doing another deep dive episode into one of those career competencies that we know employers look for. We're going to be talking today about technology. I'll be joined by Tori Nair, career counselor on our team here in Career Services, and we're going to talk a little bit about what kinds of technology skills employers look for, how you can develop these skills, how you can demonstrate these skills on your resume and in an interview, and things that you can do to make sure that you're developing these skills and learning the right kinds of technology to make yourself as hireable as possible. Here's my conversation with Tori. All right. Thank you for joining us again on another journey through one of the NACE career competencies. Today, we're going to be talking about technology and how that shows up in the workplace. I'm joined here by a familiar voice, hopefully to people who are regular listeners, Tori Nair, one of our career counselors. Tori, you want to say hi?
Hey everyone. Well, I'm excited to talk to you guys about technology today.
Yeah, so Tori's a great person to talk to about this because she spends a lot of time helping students prepare for applying for internships or jobs, and this is something that comes up pretty often. So, Tori, I've got a bunch of questions for you. We'll just kind of jump in there. Can you talk to us a little bit about so when we say technology as a workplace competency, as a career readiness skill, what do we actually mean by that?
That's a great question. So I think a lot of times we think of it in a way of like you have to be an expert at all things technology, and that's not the case. It's more just being familiar with and adaptable and flexible and learning technology. So, being comfortable with Zoom meetings or Teams meetings, be comfortable sending those emails, troubleshooting technology as you're on it, and going if you're going into a place where you have to manage a computer and things like that, just being comfortable with technology and open and flexible to learning new technologies as they come out.
Yeah, so it's a little bit more of a mindset, right? It's more than just knowing how to use your phone, but it doesn't mean that employers are expecting students to be like experts in coding or data
No.
analytics or anything like that, right?
Correct. Yep.
Unless you're applying for a data analytics or a coding job,
Right.
in
I
which
was
case
gonna
they
say, yeah.
will expect you to be an expert. Why do you think this skill is showing up on so many job descriptions across all industries? We know this is something employers are very interested in, but why?
I think it's because, I mean, we can't escape technology anymore in this current just world that we live in, right? We're using our phones, computers, iPads, all the different things, and we're constantly Zooming or doing video calls with different people. And so I think that technology is not going away. Obviously, AI has come out now too, and so that's increasing. And so I think that it's becoming more and more important for employers because this is something that you're gonna have to interact with regardless of your job. Even if your job is mostly people facing, you're still probably gonna be entering documentation or looking up information on a computer. And so I think and sending emails and things like that. So even if you're in a job that's even something more, manual labor where you're out in a construction site, you're still probably using technology. And so just being open to learning that technology as it relates to your work. And I think that's why it's important and becoming more and more important as we advance with technology across the world.
Yeah, and I think that's so interesting because that's something that we see pop up in a lot of these other career competencies is that there's this theme of like, you're never really done developing one of these competencies, right? Things change
Yep.
all the time, and technology is especially one of those things where
Yes.
there are new things coming out all the time. And so it's a lot more about like the ability to learn and adapt than it is about like knowing the current like state of technology right now.
Correct. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about some ways that this shows up in the workplace, right? Email obviously is a huge one. I'm thinking about just earlier this week when all of our Outlook accounts started acting weird, how we had to kind of all troubleshoot a little bit and
Yeah.
try to figure out like, why is our email not loading? Um, so what are some common tools or platforms that students might be expected to use at work? What should they expect to know, like need to know?
Yeah, I think definitely Microsoft, Office products. So Outlook is probably one of the most common. Not all employers will use it, but I think the most common work, system that people use for email and calendar stuff. Google and Gmail and that kind of stuff is also useful to know, and they operate pretty similarly. But even like spreadsheets, Excel, PowerPoint, all stuff that they've probably been exposed to through their classes, I think would be things that are important. Obviously, for some of those that are more into like creative work and design stuff, so having the Macs and being able to some of the like Adobe things be important. So again, some of it will depend on the job itself and what kinds of things you'll be doing. But for sure, I would say across the board, email, some sort of email platform, more likely than not Microsoft, and those types of things. And then also Teams or Zoom. I think that that is not going away. Obviously the pandemic brought a lot more common, usage of those tools, but those aren't going away. They existed even before the pandemic. And so I think just being comfortable using Zoom or using Teams or any of those platforms, that's important too.
Yeah, that's very interesting what you said about like remote meeting platforms because I've noticed that a lot of people might feel a certain way about those based on their experience during the pandemic when we were kind of all
Mhm.
forced into using them. And I think it's easy to say now, like, oh, I don't want to ever meet over Zoom or I don't want to ever use Teams or something like that. But the truth is that, even in job searching, chances are that
Mhm.
your first interview with a company is going to be over Zoom or Teams.
Yeah.
So it is important to stay sharp on those skills and know how to use it. And it is a little bit different meeting over a video conferencing platform than it is meeting in person. And so developing that skill set is really important, even very early on in a job search.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that we see that most what used to be phone interviews are now Zoom or Teams interviews, and there's a reason for that. You can better than a phone interview because you can actually see the person, see nonverbals. It's got the convenience of being able to do that from wherever. So
Yeah. Yeah. So how well versed in these things should students be? Like, do employers expect new grads to walk in already trained on everything, or is there kind of a baseline knowledge? What, in your experience, are you seeing?
I think for a lot of these more general kind of things, I think it's a baseline knowledge of just kind of having maybe used it or at least seen it. I think, obviously depending on the role, there may be more expectations. I know for our accounting students, like knowing Excel and some of that is going to be a little bit more.
Yeah, they're going to need you to be really good at Excel if you want to be an
Yeah.
accountant, right?
Yeah, but I think they don't expect you to be an expert. I can tell you my first job, I had never really used Outlook, and so I had used an email platform before, and so I knew how to do that, but I was still learning things. And the nice thing is we have, AI and YouTube and all these sites that will kinda help walk us through things if we're not sure how to use them. But I think just a baseline knowledge and then that willingness to learn and be open to learning, I think it's important, and asking questions when needed because every office or every employer does things differently too. So you used Outlook at a previous internship, but maybe the way they use it at this now is different. And so just kinda getting a sense of what you'll have the baseline knowledge, but then getting a sense of what the expectations are at that site are important too.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And that's really good advice too. If there is something that, maybe somebody feels like they're not really good at or super well versed on. There are so many YouTube tutorials right now, that, that's solid advice to always go there first and see if you can watch a tutorial on how to do something. That's basically how I know how to do anything in Excel is from watching YouTube
Yeah.
tutorials,
Well,
right?
yeah, and there's so many good things. Even like I've seen like Instagram Reels and TikTok, like there's a lot of good information out there if you're looking for it to help you make your work more, um, work smarter, not harder. I like to make it more efficient.
Yeah, so that's a nice segue into, these are some great simple ways that students can build their tech skills, right? Is
Mhm.
check out social media, check out YouTube. What kinds of tools and software should students try out before they graduate? Obviously, Outlook, Excel, Word, that kind of thing. Are there any other things that would be beneficial for people to play around with a little bit while they're in school?
Again, it depends, I think, on the type of role that they're going into. But I know, like, if you're in a more creative field, Adobe products are always important to play around in. I know some of our graphic design students use that Wix.com and they play around on there. So I think it just depends on the field that you're going into. But even if you're going into like social work or education, where you're probably mostly face to face with people, you're gonna probably doing documentation on some sort of system. So even just getting exposed, like, maybe during your internship or maybe you volunteer and you get exposed to just being able like, a charting system like Epic and things like that can be really beneficial too. So again, you're not going to just be able to get trained on that in class. But if you got some experience outside of that, that would allow you to at least even see it, what it looks like from that standpoint. I think that's important too.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the other thing, right? Is doing a little bit of research, maybe, shameless plug, talking to a career counselor about what kinds of technology you should expect to know for the field you're going into. Career services can certainly help with that, but I think having a sort of a mental picture beforehand of like the things you need to know before you go into a field, because it's not necessarily always covered in classes, right? Your classes in your major are going to teach you all of the kind of technical skills and the knowledge you need to do the job, but the actual technology platforms, sometimes they are covered, but sometimes there just isn't room to fit them in, and the expectation is kind of that do a little bit of learning there, right?
Yeah, definitely. Especially, yeah, computer science, cybersecurity, some of those majors where you'll get a lot of hands-on experience in class, but there's going to be a lot of more that you can get outside of class too.
Right, right. Some of those certifications are huge. I know LinkedIn Learning, if you're somebody who's on LinkedIn, LinkedIn has a lot of really quick, like, kinda lessons on things like Excel and Word and stuff like that too. That's really useful.
Yeah.
Okay, so resumes. How can a student show that they have this technology competency on a resume, or how do they talk about it in an interview? Do you just say, "I am proficient in Microsoft Office," or is there a better way to do that?
So, yes, you can definitely list your proficiency level on your resume, and sometimes they actually want you to do that. Like they'll have listed in the job description that you need to be proficient in Excel or Word or whatever, and so they want to see that. And so I think listing that, but I think also demonstrating it through your bullet points. So like you utilized Excel to create, whatever. Or, you can use some of the terminology too. Maybe you created pivot tables or you use VLOOKUPs or whatever, and you can use that terminology in there. So some of that's, kind of demonstrating it versus just um, saying that you have it, but then and then also showing that if you say you're proficient at Word and you're using Word to to create your resume, and if your resume you can tell you really don't know what you're doing because the formatting is all kind of weird too. So the resume itself can be a document to showcase at least your ability to use a word processing platform, and how you email and things like that. But then, yeah, in the interview, being able to talk about that, but also show it if you're doing a Zoom interview, being able to show that you know how to use Zoom, you know how to share your screen, you know what your background should look like. That's all important too. So I think just yes, you can mention it, but also demonstrating it is the most important.
Yeah, absolutely, right? I agree. I think showing how you're doing something in a bullet point is almost always more powerful than just saying you know how to do a thing, right? Saying I know how to use Excel is good, but it's better to say, here, I have used Excel to analyze sales data for
Mhm.
this class project or for, this job that I had, is always going to stand out more to an employer.
Yeah.
All right, Tori, it is time for the lightning
Lightning
round.
round.
I've
All
got
right.
some quick questions for you here. The first one is, what is one thing a student can do right now to grow their tech skills?
Google or go on YouTube. I think just like, yeah, just learning just kind of going on there and seeing what's out there and trying it out. A lot of it's free. So that would be the thing I would say, at least expose yourself that way first and then kind of build from there.
Love that. What is one common mistake that students make when it comes to technology as a career competency?
I think I think it relates to the flexibility and adaptability piece. So if you kind of come in with the mindset of like, well, I'm not really good at technology or I'm not really good at this, which I've seen with some people, or I'm good at this, but not this. And not being open to learning, I think that's the thing. So I think a lot of it with technology, I've noticed is more mental, like a mental block of like, I don't think I'm good at this. So and then you almost get your own way versus just being open and saying, "Let me figure this out," or "Let me ask questions," or "Let me Google it," or "Go on YouTube and look this up." So I think just being open and not allowing yourself to just close off thinking you're not good at something.
Yeah, yeah, you should be thinking more like, I'm not good at this yet, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, last question for you is, what is one resource that students can check out to improve their digital confidence right now? You've mentioned YouTube and Google.
Yeah,
Anything
I
else?
would say like yeah, like LinkedIn Learning, I think we mentioned that. I think that's good. And then yeah, just, I think if you're doing any online portfolios, that Wix.com is great. But just talking to your faculty and people in your field too and kind of learning what's important for your field is going to be important. too. So I think anything like that would be good.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. Thank you so much, Tori, for
Of course.
sharing your knowledge a little bit here about technology. If you're listening to this, just remember that these tech skills aren't just for STEM majors, right? I think we've given some great examples how technology shows up in every industry. Whether you're navigating a project management tool or analyzing data or just knowing your way around a spreadsheet, right? Building your fluency with these things will set you up for success later. So if you are somebody who would like some help with this or how to list it on a resume or even just doing a deep dive into what kinds of technologies you might need to brush up on for the career you're going into. Remember, Career Services is here to help. Tori, in particular, is available for meetings. So come and see us at Career Services, and we can work together to build this skill.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, well, I'm always available, and obviously you'll practice some technology with me as you will be meeting on Zoom. So we'll practice that technology. But yes, please come talk to us. If you don't ever be afraid that you look dumb or silly because you don't know something, that's what we're here to help you with.